376 bytes, 10 minutes, and most of the internet was on its knees. January 25th, 2003, 5:29 in the morning, Universal Time. Somewhere on the internet, a single packet of data is sent, 376 bytes, smaller than this sentence. It carries no payload. It steals no files. It asks for no ransom. It does exactly one thing. It copies itself and then copies itself again. Every 8.5 seconds, the number of infected machines doubles. Within 10 minutes, researchers who measured it say roughly 75,000 servers are hit, and the internet itself begins to buckle. Cash machines freeze. Flights are grounded. An entire country goes offline, and the hole it crawled through had been patched 6 months earlier. This is the story of SQL Slammer, also called Sapphire, the fastest spreading computer worm ever recorded. It carried no author's name, no message, no motive anyone could find. It was not built to make money or to spy. It was built only to spread, and it spread faster than any human could react. To this day, it holds a strange record. No one was ever caught, no one ever claimed it, and no one knows who wrote it. What makes Slammer chilling is not how sophisticated it was. It was almost insultingly simple. It's that everything it exploited was already known, already documented, and already fixable. The world had the cure before the disease arrived. Here is how 376 bytes broke the internet in 10 minutes. Chapter 1. The Flaw. Every worm needs a door. Slammer's door was found not by a criminal, but by a security researcher named David Litchfield. In the summer of 2002, Litchfield was probing Microsoft SQL Server, database software running quietly inside tens of thousands of companies, when he found a buffer overflow, a flaw in the part of the software that listens for connections on UDP port 1434. Send it a specially crafted request, and you could make the server run code that was never meant to run. Litchfield did the responsible thing. He reported it privately to Microsoft. On July 24, 2002, Microsoft released a patch, Security Bulletin MS02-039, that closed the hole completely. The fix existed. It was free. It was public. And then almost nobody installed it. Patching a live database means downtime, testing, and risk, so administrators put it off for weeks, then months. 6 months later, the vast majority of vulnerable servers were still wide open. All it needed was someone willing to weaponize it. Chapter 2. The Packet. On January 25, 2003, someone did. The weapon they built was almost nothing at all. A single packet, 376 bytes of code, small enough to fit, headers and all, inside one 404-byte network message. No file was ever written to disk. Slammer lived entirely in memory. It arrived on UDP port 1434, overflowed the buffer Litchfield had warned about, and hijacked the server. Then it did the only thing it knew how to do. It generated random internet addresses and fired copies of itself at them, as fast as the network card could send, never waiting for a reply, never completing a handshake, never slowing down. Each infected server became a fire hose, blasting thousands of copies per second at random corners of the internet. And because it lived only in memory, rebooting a machine wiped it clean. But the instant that machine came back online, still unpatched, another packet would find it within seconds and reinfect it. It was, in a sense, the purest malware ever written. It did nothing but reproduce. That was the entire program. Chapter 3. 10 minutes. Here is what that simple design actually did, measured by researchers at CADA, the Cooperative Association for Internet Data Analysis. In the first minute, The number of infected machines doubled every 8.5 seconds. Compare that to Code Red, the big worm of 2001, which doubled every 37 minutes. Slammer was roughly 2 orders of magnitude faster. About 3 minutes after release, Decoded measured the worm scanning the internet at a peak of over 55 million scans per second. Within 10 minutes, researchers estimated it had infected more than 90% of every vulnerable machine on Earth, around 75,000 hosts, possibly many more. 10 minutes. Not 10 hours, not overnight. In the time it takes to make coffee, a piece of code smaller than an email had saturated the planet. And then it hit a wall, its own success. So many copies were flooding the network that the worm effectively choked the very internet it was trying to cross. The traffic it generated became the disaster. Entire network backbones lost 1 packet in 5. The internet did not get hacked that morning. It got drowned. Chapter 4. The Collapse. For most people, this was invisible math until the machines they depended on stopped working. Bank of America found that almost all of its roughly 13,000 ATMs went offline. Customers at cash machines simply got error screens. Continental Airlines lost access to its systems and had to delay and cancel flights, unable to process electronic tickets. In the Seattle area, reporting at the time described the worm disrupting a 911 emergency call center, knocking out the data network dispatchers relied on. And in South Korea, the damage was national. The country's internet and mobile networks largely collapsed, cutting off an estimated 27 million people for hours. None of these systems were the worm's target. Slammer wasn't trying to rob a bank or ground a plane. It had no idea what a bank or a plane was. It just generated random addresses and screamed copies of itself into the void, and the collateral damage happened to include the plumbing of modern life. This is the quiet horror of Slammer. The harm was never aimed. A machine built only to reproduce reached out blindly and, in 10 minutes, brushed against cash, air travel, and emergency response for millions who had never heard of SQL Server. Chapter 5. No Name. When the dust settled, investigators went looking for who did it, and they found nothing. Slammer carried no signature, no hidden message, no political demand, no payload that pointed anywhere. It was so short there was barely any code to analyze for clues. Unlike the authors of other famous worms, some of whom bragged or left their handles buried in the code, or got caught spending stolen money, the person behind Slammer left no trail at all. No arrest was ever made. No one was ever charged. To this day, more than 20 years later, nobody knows who wrote the 376 bytes that broke the internet. What we do know is more unsettling than any culprit. Slammer didn't exploit some unknowable stroke of genius. It walked through a door that had been publicly documented, publicly patched, and publicly demonstrated 6 months before it struck. The fix existed the entire time. The internet's worst 10 minutes weren't caused by a mastermind. They were caused by a patch nobody bothered to install. That is the real lesson of SQL Slammer. The most dangerous vulnerability is rarely the one nobody knows about. It's the one everybody knows about and nobody fixes. The patch that would have stopped the fastest worm in history had been sitting available for free for 6 months. On your own devices, that update notification you keep clicking away is not an annoyance. It is the 6 months somebody once wasted. Install it today. If you want more stories of the code that shaped our world, the brilliant, the reckless, and the never caught, subscribe to Cyber Decoded. One real case at a time, decoded from the record. Next time, a fortune in cryptocurrency, locked behind a single password, and the man who took the only key to his grave. Or did he? The man who died with the only password to $190 million. Don't miss it.